Chapter 27 And the Bird Sang. Vericica eventually recovered from her injuries, though her scars were not just physical. She was quiet and less confident, and covered what remained of her hair with a cap. Her hand had been broken too badly to heal right, and, while it was not completely unusable, she was not able to get a good grip on her knife and had to learn to use her left hand more often. Luckily, while she did favor her right hand, she had been taught to be able to use a knife in either hand. Agri, Queen Silenda, and Lady Quinia all helped her, but it was difficult, particularly for Agri, since Vericica seemed to be avoiding him. Queen Silenda had heard her murmuring some of Vericica's taunts about her appearance. She had told Vericica that those were only said to hurt her, and she should ignore them, but it was hard to ignore that voice in her mind. So she avoided Agri, not wanting him seeing the patchwork of scars and hair that was just starting to grow back. "You should ask her to marry you," Lady Quinia said to Agri one night after Vericica had already gone up to her room. Queen Silenda blinked in surprise. "What?" Lady Quinia smiled a little. "Do you really not see it? You know I'm blonde when it comes to people, milady," Queen Silenda said. "I love Vericica," Agri said. This fact had long ago stopped being awkward to say, except around Vericica. He looked at Lady Quinia. "I want to, milady, but I can't right now. Not while she's like that. It just wouldn't feel right." Lady Quienia's smile widened. "Good. You're an honorable boy, Agri. You'll make a wonderful husband for her when she's ready." Agri blinked, then smiled back. "Thank you, Lady Quinia." Queen Silenda carried great grief for her parents, but after her grandmother's visit, something changed. Their death was no longer a weight she had to carry, but the force that drove her. It was the source of her determined smile and the gleam that had returned to her eyes. They were dead, yes, but that did not mean all was lost. She could win her throne and avenge their deaths. One night at dinner, she looked up. "Miasica?" she asked. "Yes," Lady Quinia said. "Can you teach me the ways of the Soledo?" she asked. "I wish to learn them so I may defeat the Jarissa King." She used to call him by his name, but after he killed her parents, she had started calling him the Jarissa King. Lady Quinia smiled. "Miasica, I've been waiting for the past almost 18 years for you to ask me that." Queen Silenda frowned. "So you have been waiting 18 years for the Jarissa King to return?" Lady Quinia chuckled. "Well, of course I'll help you." She looked at Vericica, who blinked. "You want me to help?" "Well, I have a lot to do. I can't be around all the time, so it would be helpful for you to teach her when I'm not around." Vericica looked down. "I guess." Lady Quinia sighed. "Vericica, you're skilled, and you're a fine spy. The reason I didn't want you there was because you're my niece, not because you're a bad spy." And then something happened. Vericica stabbed a bean with her fork. "Something happened because I made a stupid decision. Telling Konzi who she was and wearing her scarf all the time, not freeing her." "We all have," Lady Quinia said. "You can still help Silenda. And I know most of the reason you've been feeling this way is entirely Gesha's fault, not yours. You might have been captured, but it was her decision to hurt you this way." Vericica sighed. "I know," she said. She knew, logically, that her aunt was right, but the heart was harder to convince than the mind. Lady Quinia smiled. "Thank you." So the Soledo taught Queen Silenda their ways. She was still not a fighter, a fact she was quite annoyed with, and one that Lady Quinia told her many times was not a bad thing. It was still difficult for her to accept, as she felt it was that which had doomed her parents. Lady Quinia said there were other forms of strength. Magic was something she was better at. She enjoyed learning the theory, and she loved putting it into practice even more. She learned to weave glamours and shrouds of shadow. She learned how to sense souls and disguise her own. She also learned the arts of espionage and intrigue. She did not love how much it involved lying and generally felt half blind when trying to see the deeper meanings and motivations behind things, like she simultaneously noticed too much and too little. She grew confident in her abilities, and her goal seemed like maybe it could be in reach. Lady Quinia often seemed to mysteriously find reasons why she could not teach Queen Silenda, meaning Vericica was often the one to do it. She knew what her aunt was doing and accepted it, though it did not have much confidence in herself. As time went on, though, she was able to find it. She became more like her old self and came out of her shell, though she was not exactly the same. Agri, seeing this, asked for her hand in marriage. She considered it for a little, still hearing Vericica's voice in the back of her mind, but finally accepted. Vericica managed to find Konzi and invite her to the wedding. She also invited her comrades from back when they were spies. The new addition to the household annoyed Queen Silenda a little, since she could not be herself as often, but both she and Lady Quinia were happy for Vericica. With Queen Silenda seeming to be prepared, she, Lady Quinia, Vericica, and even Agri began spreading rumors. Rumors that the true queen lived and was planning to take her throne back. Linsco was a much more agreeable patient than Linsco. He stayed in bed instead of always trying to get up and did not complain that much. He hated this weakness, but understood that he needed to rest to get better. He was willing to ask for help, while Linsco stubbornly refused to admit he needed it. Father Jeanfin, Linsco, Thefia, and Luz Moroja took turns sitting with him while he rested and looking after him. His fever broke, eventually, but he was still too weak to do much more than sleep and maybe drag himself out of bed to eat. Luzmo, Vila, and Viasinha came to Soravigno just after Sister Ashadelia left. Father Jeanfin smiled. Brio Elmo, bella Elia. Happy Dralirviesh, he said. Luzmo smiled. Happy Dralirviesh, father. As they were in Ozin, he was trying to use an Ozinin accent, though often some of his Sonaran wording slipped in. I've got some people staying with me, and one of them's a patient, so if you want to stay for a while, you'll want to find somewhere else. Really? Oh, Luzmo asked. A couple from a nearby village that got burned down and a berated boy who got hurt, said Father Jeanfin. There's a girl who wants to look after him who's here too, but she's staying somewhere else. Luz Maroja was staying with some farmers. She helped them out in return for their hospitality, but came by when she was free and helped take care of Linsco. Luzmo nodded. See. Can we come in? Father Jeanfin smiled. My sister would say, yes, you can, and then not step aside. Luckily for you, I ain't no Baladin. He opened the door wider and they came in. Linsco was sitting with Linsco, who was sleeping, though frowning and occasionally whimpering. Linsco had looked up at the knocking, then frowned, thinking Luzmo's accent was a little off. Once he saw Viasinha, his frown deepened. He was sure he had seen her before. When the door was closed, Viasinha tugged on Vila's skirts. Mappa, I know this boy, she said in her normal accent. Do you? Vila said, looking at her. The girl nodded. I do! It's the sleepy boy. Linsco deflated, suddenly realizing where he knew her from. Vila blinked at Luzmo, who looked just as confused as her, then looked back at Viasinha. The what? The sleepy boy, Viasinha said. Her expression got more serious. Once, the Rosene stole him while he was breaking a pot. He was mad, but then he drank some water and got quite tired and went to sleep. Then, until we got back to a real island, he just woke up to eat and drink more water. Vila and Luzmo looked at each other. Oh, she said. Father Jeanfin looked at Linsco, who had his face in his hand. Luzmo frowned, looking at Linsco. So, does this mean you're... Linsco nodded. Diaresico, said Father Jeanfin. Viasinha frowned. They called him Areshasico. I thought it was 'cause he was wearing orange and so small. Father Jeanfin and Vila laughed. Linsco glared at the girl, and Luzmo gave his wife a pained look. She smiled at him, and his expression softened. Luzmo looked at Linsco's hook. So you lost Anne too, he said, pulling off his glove to reveal his false hand. You want some help planning how to deal with it? Linsco nodded, glad to find someone who would at least partially understand him. Father Jeanfin smiled. It's a miracle! You got him to accept help! Linsco gave him a look, and he chuckled, rubbing his shoulder affectionately. Luzmo frowned. That ain't. He blinked. That was a joke. Vila nodded, smiling, and then he smiled too, happy to have gotten it right eventually. She looked back at Father Jeanfin. So if one part of the couple you mentioned is him, does that mean... Father Jeanfin nodded. Your niece. She smiled. Good. We can finally have a proper meeting. Linsco frowned. Father Jeanfin smiled a little. I think he wants to know why you thought that Fasija was the other half of the couple. Linsco blushed. Oh, calm down. You two already admitted it, said Father Jeanfin. I know you're close and became soldiers together. Vila said. Also, I've met your siblings and hers. Linsco nodded. That explained it, the latter better than the former. Viasinha frowned. Why won't he talk? He talked quite a lot before he got tired. Well, not talked really, but he did yell. Linsco looked down. Father Jonfin glanced over at him, and he sighed and nodded. He can't talk right now, Father Jonfin said. Why not? She asked. Is it like when too many things are happening and Bobo don't talk? Father Jonfin glanced at Linsco. Not exactly. It's because... He searched for an explanation, knowing that I don't know would not be an answer she would accept. His mind is so busy thinking about what happened that it can't think about talking. He frowned. I guess that's kind of what your bubble said it's like. Really? I said. Yes. But they took away my foot and Bobo's hand. Why didn't we stop talking? Vyasinya asked. Well, you're all different, so you did different things after it happened. Well, I did stop talking for a bit. Well, not just 'cause of my aunt. And they were all cut off at different times and places and for different reasons. Yours was cut off so you wouldn't run away. I'm sure he lost his fight in the Jarissa King, and mine was cut off to bring him back, Rosmo said. But Linsco almost fell out of his chair in surprise. Father Jonfin looked shocked as well. You were there? You knew? Don't ask him about it, 'cause it's rude, Rosmo finished. He looked up. Yes, I was, but no, we didn't. Who took Villa's hand? It was when we found each other again, actually. How could you have been there and not known? We're not sure, but we're pretty sure it was Moria's fault, Villa said. We thought Lucasijo's hand was cut off because they thought he was too annoying until... It must have been when the attack happened. Then it all came back. Linsco nodded. That sounded like Moria. Then he looked up, his expression inquisitive. I think he wants to know what happened, said Father Jonfin. Let's wait until Thefia's back, Villa said. I'm sure she'll want to know. Luzmo nodded. We should. Luzmo, Villa, and Vyasinya found someone to stay with. Villa and Thefia were happy to finally meet properly. Thefia thanked her for her help, and Father Jonfin finally figured out their long story. Thefia and Linsco woke Linsco long enough for them to hear about how Garento had returned. Luzmo started trying to help Linsco with his hand. Linsco got more comfortable using his right hand, but remained silent. He started trying to use his sword again and trained with Thefia and Villa outside of town, while Luzmo watched and offered advice. Though once Linsco was well enough to travel, they went to Jarissa to ask for shelter from Lady Evadelia. Father Jonfin sighed on the day they left. So you're going, he said. Thefia and Linsco nodded. We wish we could stay, Thefia said. But they've already come asking around twice. She looked up. It won't be forever, Father. We're going to stay safe, and we'll try to write something. Nothing clear, of course, but something. I know, he said, and I'll be praying for you. He smiled, but you'd better come back for your wedding. They both blushed, but did not say anything else. He chuckled. Stay safe, Linsco quiso, Thefasija. Goodbye. Goodbye, Father, Thefia said. Linsco did something very surprising and actually hugged his brother. Father Jonfin smiled and returned it, picking the boy up and spinning him around like he did when they were younger. When they pulled apart, Linsco was giving him a flat look, but seeing his brother smile, his expression soon mirrored it. They traveled to Genovine and were received by Lady Evadelia. There was a gasp when they entered. Linsco, Elinsco, Theofonsia, is that you? It was the voice of Prince Guero. He was dressed in fine Jarissan-style clothes in Quinia's colors, standing near the Lady Jarissa. A handsome Jarissan girl was standing next to him. Her hair was black, falling down her back in long, thick curls, and she was wearing derias green and silver, like Lady Evadelia and her daughter. Since entering Jarissa, Linsco and Thefia had stopped pretending to be married. The boys and Thefia looked up. Prince Guero? Thefia said. Of course, he said. They looked at each other. That ain't very surprising, actually, Thefia said. This Vericica, Linsco said. Prince Guero blinked. I am not sure whether to be offended by that. Lady Evadelia cleared her voice. Prince Guero, can I speak to my guests? He nodded. Right, sorry. Thank you. Lady Evadelia turned back to Linsco and his companions. So who are you, and what brings you here? My name is Villadelia, said Villa. My husband is Luzmisho, our ward is Via Zepha, and the others are Elinsco, Elinsco Riza, Theofonsia, and Luzmisha Roja. She paused and glanced at Linsco. Linsco is the Jarissa King. A gasp rippled through the gathered crowd. Linsco looked down, adjusting his cloak to hide his hook better. Lady Evadelia raised her eyebrows. Oh? King Rideros was the loudest. He is? And you did not tell me? Did my family know? They knew, Thefia said. We didn't tell you because you're a fool who wouldn't think before telling everyone, Linsco said. Prince Guero's face flamed. Linsco si Jarissa, Thefia hissed. Linsco gave her a look and she sighed. Lady Evadelia smiled. So do you want shelter like the prince? Vila nodded. We do, she said. And I don't think Lusasisho can take much more moving around, she thought. She could feel him next to her, trying not to fidget visibly, but clearly wanting to. He wished they could have just stayed in Soravigno, or, even better, somewhere in Zanera. But like with the rest of their traveling, he knew they had to come here. The closest he had ever been to somewhere like the castle in Genovine was an ornate church, or the house of the Tonateran lord he had been sold to, which brought up very unpleasant memories, and being so far north did not help that. He had also just spent several days traveling, which had brought new towns with new people and new inns with new noises, something that easily tired him. He kept his eyes glued to the floor, wishing he could be somewhere else. Vila squeezed his hand. Lady Evadelia looked at Linsco. Well, you're an honest lad, clearly. I'm sure you know that's something we like. Not to mention you have the Jarissa King with you. We have plenty of excuses already to fight the Jarissa King. What's one more? She looked at Prince Guero and the girl next to him. Find them somewhere to stay. She straightened. They are not to be bothered, she said, looking pointedly at the prince. I know many of you, Prince Guero, may be curious, but do not pester them with questions. Prince Guero rolled his eyes. Vila smiled. Thank you, milady. Prince Guero and the girl went over and found them a place to stay, the former doing his best to ignore Lady Evadelia's orders about asking questions, seemingly wanting to hear every second of what had happened since Garento's attack. Thefia did most of the explaining, though Linsco did a little and introduced Luzma Roja. He had been able to make the journey, but had not completely recovered yet. The prince asked Luzmo and Vila many questions as well. Luzmo seemingly started trying to eat his own face. Vila reminded the prince that he was not supposed to bother them. Prince Guero sighed and rolled his eyes. Luzmo looked at her gratefully. He wanted to find somewhere dark and quiet and hide there forever. Viasinia explained that Luzmo had been traveling a lot, and being in new places made him tired, and he blushed. Prince Guero stopped and went back to talking to the others. He said the girl was the Lady Riadelia, Lady Evadelia's niece, whom he had become good friends with. He asked for Linsco, Linsco, and Thefia's stories, and they gave them to him. Then they asked for his. The prince's expression became a bit sad. A couple days after the attack on Soledo, my family and I were attacked by the Rosene. I wanted to stay back and fight. My goodness, how much I wish I had. But Silikisa dragged me away. I got away from her and tried to find my way back to them, but I could not. So I came here instead. A good thing we did, Linsco said. If the king lost against them, there ain't no way you'd have won. Why, if he were here, he would thank me for finally being someone who has the guts to tell you no. King Ridero had actually offered to pay his soldiers extra for being firm with the prince. This had not helped much, though, since still no one wanted to deal with him in any way. Prince Guero glared at him. "Now tell them how we found you," Lady Riadelia said. "I would rather not," he said. "What did you do this time?" Linsco asked. The prince sighed. "Almost got caught by the tyrants," Lady Riadelia said. Luzmo looked up. "I'm sorry," he said. Linsco, Linsco, and Thefia nodded. "It is fine," Prince Guero said, trying to sound attached and think of anything but that moment. Of how his usual bravado had failed him, and he had just been a boy who looked like he was made of sticks, barely 15 and terrified. Of course, any lesson he might have learned from that incident was quickly forgotten, and his recklessness had landed him in Lady Evadelia's dungeon several times. Thefia looked at Linsco and Linsco. "Well, pay up." They sighed and gave her some of their money. Prince Guero blinked. "You three had a bet," he said, sounding almost offended. "Two," Thefia said. that we'd find you in Jarissa or Riska, and that you'd get in trouble with the tyrants before you turned 16. Father Jeanfau had not approved of either. Luzmo was also frowning, very uncomfortable with the idea of betting on the tyrants catching someone. The conversation continued. A few minutes later, the prince made a minor theological error, and Luzmo's discomfort in this new place was overrun by the need to talk about theology. This continued until they found him, Vila, who, unlike everyone else, seemed to understand and be interested in his monologue, and Viasinha a room to stay in. Linsco kept training, but on the castle grounds, and with Linsco once he was strong enough. It did not go well for Linsco. It was very frustrating to him, even more than the other things he had tried doing with his right hand. His sword, which had once been an extension of his arm, had become an awkward and unwieldy thing. Even simple things seemed like insurmountable challenges. For some reason, his right arm would just not cooperate. He knew what to do. He knew how to move his arm and remaining hand. He had done it countless times with his left. But what he wanted them to do, and what they would actually do, were two vastly different things. He wanted to scream in frustration at times, but all he could do was press his lips together and stomp. His voice was even less cooperative than his arm. At least his arm would still move. At least it would do some of the things it was supposed to. His voice would not do anything. He could not speak. He could not sing. He could not shout. He could not grunt. He could not even whisper or mouth words. His lips refused to form them. He could gesture, sigh, and make expressions, but those were painfully imprecise. His brother and Thafia understood him well enough, at least, but not perfectly. And with Luzmo he might as well have been speaking Riskin. At times he felt like crying, but he did not. Thafia, Linsco, and Father Jeanfau, before they left for Jarissa, had tried to be encouraging, the former two telling Linsco that he did well, even when he ended up on the ground and covered in mud and snow, and the latter that he would get better. Linsco hated it. He wished they would just tell him what they really thought. He was starting to doubt that he could really do it. In Viela Elomi, he was knocked down at the end of another long, unproductive day. If his voice worked, he would have groaned. Thafia offered him a hand. "It's all right, Alicisio. You did well. I'm sure you'll get better." She was speaking in her motherly tone. Linsco did not accept it. He rolled his eyes, then stood and left, looking down and pulling his cloak around him. Thafia sighed. "I'll try to talk to him," Luzmo said. "He might listen to me." "Are you sure?" Vila asked. "Well, I've got to try, don't I?" Luzmo said. "What about me?" Thafia said. "He might listen to me more, since I also lost a hand," Luzmo said. "All right," Thafia said. Really, she just wanted him to listen to someone. Luzmo found Linsco heading inside. Luzmo rolled his eyes when he saw him. Again, he would have groaned if his voice worked. He was not in the mood to deal with Luzmo. "I know what happened to me ain't the same as what happened to you, but I still lost my good hand. It took quite a while for me to get used to it, so don't lose hope," Luzmo said, though he winced a little at how the words sounded. Linsco frowned. "I know I might make it look easy, but it took me months to get to this point," Luzmo said. Linsco glared at him. That was not the reason for his reaction. It had been months. He had not expected to be back to how he had been, or as close as he could get. He had expected some progress. But no, his right arm was as useless with a sword as ever. If his voice worked, he probably would have snapped at him. Luzmo blinked, then looked down, blushing. "Sorry," he sighed. "Must be odd, being like that." Linsco did the closest he could to a dry laugh and rolled his eyes. That was an understatement if there ever was one. "Can't say how you feel. People don't always understand you," Luzmo continued. "Yes, like you," Linsco thought bitterly. "At least you got something right." "Look," Luzmo said, looking at Linsco. "I know you're going through a lot right now, and I know it feels like you failed everyone. But sitting around and feeling sorry for yourself won't get you nowhere. Ain't no one you can help like this. Thefasija's right, you haven't failed. You've only failed if you give up, so don't. Keep moving." Linsco sighed and kept walking. He stayed silent for several more days, considering Luzmo's words. Next Agri, they went to La Carrière. It always began with the chant Eshlani Shi. Sprinkle me. After the title was intoned, everyone came in with Diangos do Viesci ad gladarvos, with Water Lord and I will be clean. 17 years of habit and his current distractions meant Linsco tried to sing it as well. Then he stopped. A smile spread across his face and did not falter for the rest of Lecaria. He had done it. His voice had returned. He said the responses as loudly as he could, which, still being Linsco, was not very loudly. Once they were outside, Thafia threw her arms around him and kissed him, crying from joy. "You're back!" Linsco returned it, also crying. "I am," he said. "I finally am." Luzmo almost made a joke about how they were not supposed to kiss until after the birth of their first child, but seeing Villa's expression, decided not to. That night, Villa got someone to write her the following letter to Father Jeanfin. Dear Father Jeanfin, during Lecaria today I heard a bird singing. A small thing, but a beautiful one. Your friend, Vagelia. When the priest received the letter, he understood it, and was so happy that he cried. He wrote his twin a similar message, and she had a similar reaction.